Yeah, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. If you can hear me, just let me know uh, before I continue with the class. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Daniel, Mr. Ugo, Mr. Saliu. Good morning.
Good morning. A pleasure having you.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to the From Farm to Export class. The plan is to create something that is free and filled with information for farmers. So we hope this is going to be like in series of installments, and this will be like the first class that we are going to have. So there will be some things that maybe you might be expecting us to actually teach or to share, but in this class that it will come up like maybe in the next series, in the next class. Again, because we can't actually cover everything in one class. And since it's also a free class, and so we have to put a lot of things into proportion. So I believe that most of us that are in the class have interest in either farming or agriculture, or we are agribusiness entrepreneurs, or we have something already that we are doing or we are looking at to do in agricultural commodities, trade, and financing. So for this class, we are looking into operational requirements for setting up farm to export, the procedures, the things that are actually supposed to be in place for us to actually start our own farm, whether it's something at our backyard or maybe it's on 1 acre of land, 2 acres of land, 5 acres of land. And we want to be able to harvest from there and process and package and ship it to a buyer in another country, and how we can assess our customers' needs, their requirements, and their specification, how to take care of our supply chain, local trade financing, and we'll also look into export and supply contracts. Export and supply contracts. So that's what we'll be looking into for today's edition. So after this class, we'll have access to the presentation, and this class also it's going to be on a YouTube channel so that everyone we can also access it after this class. Okay, so in order not to waste too much time, so I'll take the class. I'm going to do a lot of explanation. So maybe when we come to the there'll be some time, so I'll ask for questions in case we have any question. Then at the end of the whole class and all that, I'll still take another batch of questions before we call it a day. So what is exporting and why is it important for we farmers? Why is it important for we farmers? As we already know, some of us already have the knowledge that exporting is sending out something to another country. Just like we also hear the word import sometimes, like we bring in something into the country. But when we are taking something out of the country to another country, that is exporting. So when you take an item, when you move an item from Calabar, from Abuja, from Lagos, from Ibadan, from Abeokuta, from Borno, to another country, you've exported that thing in exchange for money, in exchange for their own currency, which is foreign exchange. So that's how we come about foreign exchange. When you sell something from your own country to another country, and they are paying you in their own currency. So that's foreign exchange. So exporting is one of the terms that makes up international trade, because international trade is all about import and export. So the exporting part is what we are focusing on. So it means moving an item from one country to another country. So the country we are talking about now could be a country that is close by. It could be a country that is far away from us. So one of the things that is really affecting a lot of farmers in Nigeria and West Africa is that we can't get to export a lot of our produce, a lot of our harvest. So there are different ways that we are going to be looking at, that we are going to be discussing about in how we can get this done. So when you move an item or a product from country A to country B for a foreign exchange, that means that you are actually exporting that thing. So it could be that, let's say you planted, let's say you have a plot of land at the back of your house. You have a plot of land at the back of your house. You constructed a greenhouse, like a greenhouse farm, and you planted pepper. You planted the red pepper. So, and maybe you harvest this pepper every 2 months, every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 9, 10 weeks. And when you do that, you just sell it to people around you in the environment. You sell it to to different grocery stores, so they sell it to the final consumer, the people that is going to consume and eat them. So what this class is trying to do is, okay, how can you actually take that pepper, and export it to another country? Like I have a client that we do every two weeks, there's a quantity of food items, or let me say like food items that we export, that we send to his country, So part of this food item is pepper, is red pepper. So there are different challenges we came across at first in sending out that pepper. Sometimes we'll send the pepper, by the time our client even clears it, the pepper has spoiled and all that. So sometimes we have to search for, there's a particular species of pepper that we have to get, that we have to, send out, and all this. So we've come to realize that, as farmers, we need to first and foremost understand like the kind of species, what we actually, sending out there, or what we want to send. So we need this knowledge even before going into farming, even before going into what we want to plant. So there are some crops, there are some plants that when you go into farm and say that this is what I want to do, they are exportable crops. They are not cash crops, like maybe something that will take a lot of time. In 3 months, you can even harvest and you can have it packed, processed for export. And that is some of the things we are going to be looking at. So if you sell products from your country to a client in another country, you are the exporter. And what you just did was export the products. You just exported the product. So a product that is sold to the global market is called an export. So the items or the products, the harvest, the produce, whatever is in your farm that you've packaged, that you've processed, and you've shipped out is the export. Is the export. And I want us to have it at the back of our mind that there are lots of farmers even in Lagos that everything they do is for export. They only sell like a minor quantity of it locally. So then we're also going to talk about processing, packaging of this produce, of these products also. Okay, so next slide is okay. So exporting is important for farmers because one, it helps increase the production capacity of farmers. So one of the things that we found out is that as a farmer, if you are actually exporting, one thing is that you can actually increase your output because you know that this thing, it won't spoil. If you are not selling it locally, you can actually pack it, process it, and ship it out to another client in another country. So one thing it does is to increase your production capacity. Now, you can also earn more by processing and packaging. So let's say you planted turmeric, or you planted ginger, or you planted groundnuts, onions, this kind of simple crops that are still easy, orange flesh potatoes, so when you have this kind of crops, by the time you harvest them, you can easily process your own self, like the turmeric and all that. You can be the one to do the drying, grind it into containers. Maybe you put it in nylon or you put it into containers or whatever the case might be. So some of my students in Akure, for instance, they have a farm around Futa. What they do they plant spices, different spices like pepper, green pepper, yellow pepper, red pepper. So what they just do is to own their own spices markets. So they have these very beautiful, well-branded spices products, different products that they sell. They sell it locally and they're also exporting it to Nigerians that are actually in diaspora, that are actually in other countries. While those ones can even help them, to sell it to the indigenous, like the people who are actually from their own location can also buy into those products. So most times now, the world is evolving into, is not, we have our own local market that we are going to, serve, but at the same time, we need to start looking into how we can process, package, and export to buyers in other countries. So some of us already have this knowledge. We already know how to do this. We know how to process. Maybe what we don't know how to do is the technical knowledge that we don't have, the technical know-how, the technical knowledge. For some even have oven, they have dryers, they have a grinding machine, they have all these things already, maybe somewhere, but they are not using it because they don't have like the proper buyer that will buy the required quantity that will make exporting those products a profitable business for them. So these are just some of the things that we'll be discussing as we go. Then it decreases wastage of harvest because one of the things that I found out in particular while traveling the north is that a lot of commodities go to waste. A lot of commodities waste. A lot of harvest, a lot of produce actually, got wasted along the line. So even before they are able to sell, even before they are able to move it to the market, this produce, because maybe some of them can spoil due to heat, due to maybe it was packed in a sack and it's not yet dried, and all that, or poor storage facility. So all these actually happens. But when you know that, okay, for my harvest, maybe I harvested 1,000 tons of of produce, you already know that, oh, I usually sell maybe 300, 400 tons by myself, but the remaining I can process it for harvest. So there's no need taking any form of waste at that particular time, because you can actually just process the remaining for export. So what are the things that you need to actually export your produce or your harvest or whatever that you are planting? So there are two sides to this. There are two sides to this. In this class, we'll be talking more about the containerized aspect, about the big commodities like you exporting ginger, you exporting cashew nuts, you exporting seasoned seeds, turmeric, groundnut, maize, soybeans. These are plants. These are crops that you can plant in southwest, you can plant in north, in southeast. They do well in Nigeria in general. So we'll be focusing on that. We'll still have another class like this. We'll focus more on vegetables, pepper, tomatoes, chili, fish, those aspects of agriculture, those aspects of farming. So that will that will um, that will bring about another form of requirement that is a little bit different from this one. So now, one is you need a registered company, a limited liability company, for you to be able to for you to set up this this form of export directly from your farm. You need an NEPC certificate, which is Nigeria Export Promotion Council certificate. You need a certificate. All these are things that that I listed. You can do them online. You can do your CAC registration online. You can do your NEPC certificate online. Just go to the website, you make payment and all that. Then you need a bank account. You need a corporate bank account. The bank, once you let them understand, or once you let them know that you need the account for export, they are going to open account for you in Naira and another account for you in dollars. So it will be two accounts they are going to open for you, one in Naira, one in dollars. So let's say that already you have a registered company, you have a bank account, but that account is in Naira. You need them to open an export proceed account for you, which is usually in dollars. So the export proceed account is different from your normal USD account. It's different from your normal USD account. The difference is that in your export proceed account, the federal government or the Central Bank of Nigeria is able to monitor what is actually coming in to you. Is able to monitor the export proceeds, because before you can export out of the country, you need what is called an NXP form. You need what is called NXP form. Now that NXP form is just like when you fill a form that, oh, I want to export this commodity to this country. The CBN will give you a code. So that code is what the CBN will use to track that there was a time, maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago, last month, you exported so amount of products that is worth $5,000, that is worth $20,000, that is worth $100,000, that is worth $1 million, from the shores of Nigeria. So the CBN can know that, oh, the money has been paid, or the money hasn't been paid. So they can ask you later on. They will give you like about 6-7 months. Then your bank will forward you an email to ask you what's happening with your export proceed. Your export proceed has not been received. So they are going to ask you that. they are going to, inform you so that you can also, so that your money can come in. So in case you have any issues with your money, you can easily, let them also know them. You can facilitate things with them. So that's why your export proceed account is different from the, normal corporate USD account. You can withdraw cash from your corporate USD account. You can't withdraw cash from your export proceed account because there's a new CBN regulation that states that all export proceeds is either you change it at the counter, of the bank at the normal FX, CBN official FX rate, or you use it for import. Use it to import things in. So, but you and your bank can actually work things out and they will get you a very good rate for your dollars. So you need a limited liability account, your NEPC certificate, and your bank account, your USD account. So finally, you can't do all this as a farmer if you don't have a good harvest, if you don't have a good produce. So when are you actually supposed to get all these things ready? Is it when you are harvesting, or is it when you've already have all these things in store, like in your warehouse and all that? So for some of us that have big farms, we already have warehouse on our farm. We already have like the infrastructure is on ground. All we just need is the operational structure or the to get things running, to get the ball running. So we can get all these things together. But if we are just starting out, it's also good that we get all these things on ground, because if you are planting soybeans, for instance, soybeans is 3 months. Soybeans is like 3 months. So let's say you planted soybeans on 50 acres. You planted soybeans on 100 acres of land. By the time you harvest, let's say processing, drying it, bagging it, and all that takes another 6 weeks. Let's say it takes another 6 weeks. So if you already have your documentations on ground, you can start. Let's say you soybeans was planted on your farm today. You can start searching for buyers, people that can buy the commodity from you. So what you just be looking for is off-takers, foreign off-takers, not local off-takers now. Foreign off-takers that you can show that, oh, this is what is on my farm, 50 acres of soybeans, and all that. So these are like very fast, or should I say short time framed crops that you can plant within 3 months, like groundnut. Groundnut also is a perfect example, is a very good example of a crop you can plant and you can harvest. You can harvest, and they also need groundnut also need little. Once you have a threshing machine that removes the back and all that, then you have some few laborers that will blow off the the particles so that you have just the groundnut. Then you dry it once it's well dried, and in the warehouse where you store it, water does not come in contact with it's dried. It's not that the place is too humid and all that. The groundnut is fine and okay, and is also one of the top commodities that moves out of the country. It's also one of those commodities they buy to India and Vietnam for peanuts and other groundnut products. They also use it for making these jam or this kind of peanut butter. Yes, peanut butter that is used in eating bread and all that. So these are, and we also have the long-term, have long-term crops like the cashew nuts, like mangoes, and other things, cocoa beans, that takes longer time frame. So then, apart from these requirements, one of the things that we need to put into mind, that we need to understand, is these three questions that I listed. What are you planting? Like we've come to almost like the end of the rainy season. Uh, this is September, so very soon it's going to be dry season 100%. So if you just want to plant something, what do you want to plant that you know that it can be exported, or you can actually get an export market for? Not forgetting that supposing you plant it and you don't get a market for it immediately, like you don't get a buyer to actually buy it immediately, can it stay the next 3 months without spoiling? Can it stay the next 6 months without spoiling? So these are just few things that you also need to put in mind, put in place. So now, why are you planting what you are planting? Why are you planting? Are you planting for the local market? Are you planting for the international market? And if you are planting for the international market, do you have a location in mind? Do you have a location in mind? Okay, there is a new species of cashew nut that is genetically modified, that you can plant and it can start fruiting within a year. It can start fruiting within a year, which means, let's say you have like 100 acres of land now planted with cashew crops, and by the end of the year, let's say because it's the first year, the branches haven't really grown out that much. Let's say you get just 2 tons or maybe 3 tons of cashew nuts from it. What do you intend to do with it? What do you intend to do with that? So you need to have these plans on ground. Are you just going to use the crop for samples? Maybe you use the crop for samples first, send it out to prospective buyers in India, in Vietnam. Maybe there are some Indian visitors. Some visitors came from Vietnam to check what's going on. Maybe you take them to your farm, you give them these samples, you see what's happening and all that. Or maybe you are the one contacting them. Maybe you already have a list of addresses of different factories, and So now, by the second year, by the third year, by the time you are doing 1-2 tons per acre, maybe on these crops. Please mute yourself, please. On these crops or on these commodities, are you doing it because you are going to be supplying Lagos? You are going to be supplying merchants in Lagos or exporters in Lagos, or you are going to be the one doing your exports yourself? So these are some of the things that you just need to put in place. Then, how are you planting it? How are you planting? Because there's also one of the things that you need to also understand is standard. And these standards, you have to meet some criteria to actually export some products to some certain countries. So, like for instance, if you are you what you're actually planting now, are you planting on, is it on the soil? Are you using a soilless mechanism in your farm for what you are doing for the vegetables, maybe for even your potatoes, for because some of these crops now, it's not a must you actually put them into the soil. So all these factors, you need to understand them. So after you've planted, are you going to add chemical fertilizer? Are you going to add organic or inorganic fertilizer to them? Are you using any kind of chemicals that might actually affect the specification of the of the harvest at the end of the day? Like so there will be some specification or some things that the buyer that wants to buy the crop from you will tell you that must not be in the in the composition of what you want to send to their company, or maybe has to be there. So all this, the way you actually plant or what the things that you use while, spraying, while making sure that the crop grows well, comes out well, matters a lot. So it could affect the produce, it could affect the harvest. So one way to deal with things like this is for you to actually research specifications earlier before going into a focused crop or a focused plant, that this is what you want to do for your farm to export those produce. So you can first research to know that I'm actually doing the right thing and it won't give me an issue by the time I harvest, so that it doesn't, if you use a particular chemical now and by the time you are done with your harvest and all that, so you send a sample, that sample was tested, then the sample is containing chemicals that are not needed. So that could actually affect your business in the long run. So like I was saying in that previous slide. So in this slide, we are looking at assessing clients and customer needs. So first is, have you researched well enough the global market space? Like after you've done an analysis of, let's say, the land that you have, the farmland, your own farmland, the size of the farmland, where the farmland is located, that is the kind of soil that you have there. So what is it actually good for? So like I have some farm now, for instance, those land, I can't plant plantain on them. They won't do well. They won't come out well. And I also have some farmlands that the best crop that comes out of there is cassava. So you need to access all this. And you know that a land where cassava will do very well, groundnut will most likely do very well there also. And some other tuber crops, potato, yam, and all that will also do very well. So in that kind of environment, maybe what you want to really focus on is groundnut. And maybe when it's time for maize, you also plant maize and all that. So you want to do your research well. Now, between groundnut and maize, groundnut is still a bit higher in price than maize. So you also want to look at what kind of crop can you plant that you know that you get higher returns, not just you put in a lot of effort and you now get a minimal return. So one of those crops that moves very fast and maybe you don't have to stress yourself too much is soybeans. So if your farmland, if it's really okay, if it's really good, you can just focus on soybeans. During the period when it's actually very good to plant. So, two, do you have a good understanding of standards and specifications? Like, for instance, in the ginger case study that I wrote here, that I put here, that we can learn from also. Okay, so if you are focused on planting ginger, for instance, there's some environments in the south where that ginger is very good to plant. In the north also, ginger, in fact, I think the bulk of the country's ginger comes from the north. So to export means you have to dry and process your ginger, because you can't export a freshly or if a still fresh harvest ginger inside containers. It will spoil because of the heat. So now processing freshly harvested ginger for export means you have to wash it. You have to make sure it is very clean. You have to shred. You have to
Hello.
shred, you have to, please, can you mute yourself?
Okay.
Okay, so that means you have to shred the ginger to make sure, because so that it's going to be dried internally, every part of that ginger is going to be dried. It won't be like, oh, this part is wet, that part is dried. And when you are washing your ginger, don't use chemical to wash it because you want it to be white, because you want it to be clean. No, let it come out with its own color. The only thing is when you are using your oven to dry it, whether you are sun drying it or you are using your oven to dry it, just make sure you dry it well and it's not burnt. It doesn't. It comes out very fine. So in its own color. So this is what we call the dried split ginger. The final product is what's called the dried split ginger. So for dried split ginger, for instance, there are different grades of dried split ginger. So the popular grade that we use in Nigeria for export of dried split ginger is Aster grade. So we call it Aster grade A, and there's Aster grade B. So the difference in Aster grade A and Aster grade B is just how fine and how unique it is. So the Aster, it means American standard. It means American standard. There are several other grades for different countries when it comes to dried split ginger. So one of the things that you have to look at when you are looking at this specification is how dried is it? How dried is it? Like the humidity, the content, the water content after you've dried it. So that's one of the things that makes up a unique specification. In fact, it's very, very important. For any commodity that you want to export, they will always tell you the kind of humidity content or humid content or water content they want that is needed for that commodity. So then you can also dry your ginger without splitting it. It's called the whole dried ginger. You dry it that way without splitting it. But most times it is the splitted ginger that is actually bought most of the time. Please, we have less than a minute. So if we are logged out, kindly use the same link to log back in. So kindly use the same link to log back in. So if you understand this standard and specification before going into your farm, or now that you understand, you can put that into place even before you harvest. Or even if you've harvested, you can now, start making sure that whatever you are processing comes out as required, as the standard, as the specification. So this is actually very important for whatever we are planting or whatever we have in mind to plant. This also works with